Do you want to know how long a copyright lasts? Do you want to know whether a work that could have been copyrighted was never registered? Do you want to know how to determine whether a copyright was not renewed? Do you want to know the rules for works from different foreign countries? Do you want to find out whether a use you have in mind would constitute fair use under the law? Are you going to deal with a work that has derivative works? These are all subjects in this series of videos. This video discusses how you can tell if copyright protection ended earlier than it otherwise might have on particular works. The video in this series on duration in copyright, if you've already seen it, told you the general idea of how long copyright lasts on American works. Generally, 95 years on everything with a copyright start date of 1923 and later, and whereas anything from 1922 and earlier has entered the public domain, meaning it no longer enjoys copyright, and it never will again enjoy copyright. In that previous video, you also saw tables showing how long copyrights last. And you saw that copyrights had to be renewed during the 28th year. Now you might be wondering, well, what about all those videos that you see selling for $1, or those ones that are available on the internet to be streamed for free from reputable companies? How can this be? The answer is that not every work that was entitled to copyright, or which was entitled to a second term in copyright, actually got to enjoy that term. That's why this video is on unexpected early expirations of copyright, and for that matter, works about which you can't even say copyright expired because these works never enjoyed copyright at all. Many of these works which sell for $1 on DVD are the same titles that 2 or more decades ago were mainstays in the 16mm and Super 8 collectors markets. You're seeing some advertising material for those particular editions right here. A great place to start with the various questions to ask to determine whether a work was subject to early copyright expiration or no enjoyment of copyright at all is the question and answer tree at chart.copyrightdata.com. By looking over the questions and seeing whether the conditions mentioned in the questions apply to a particular work, you will know whether to look for whether the copyright date in the copyright notice on the work itself is an earlier date than the actual one, or, can you believe it, a later date than the actual one, which can make a copyright completely ineligible right out the gate, whether the work has no copyright notice, no notice whatsoever, which was enough to deprive a work of copyright prior to 1989, or whether the work had a copyright notice invalid for a reason other than the ones mentioned thus far. There's a few questions and answers to go through there.
What are all these pictures we're seeing on the screen right now?
These images are on the copyrightdata.com website, but they are documentation that show that works that you may recognize as public domain works are indeed public domain for the reasons that you see in the illustrations.
You mean these invalid-looking copyright notices really are invalid?
Yes.
I don't trust anyone's statements except those that are actual government sources.
Well, click these links where it says citation or documentation. These will lead you to fuller descriptions, along with citations and indications of where to look in government sources. Keep in mind that you can always go to the copyright.gov site, which operates under the authority of the United States Congress, and look over the text of the current Copyright Act right there.
And what about some of these older copyright laws that aren't going to be on the government's website?
Fortunately, another website, law.copyrightdata.com, reproduces every version of the Copyright Act from 1909 to the present.
These look like rather nitpicky details to me.
You can say what you will about them, but courts have ruled against defendants on the basis of details in the Copyright Act that have changed over the years. It's important to know the copyright laws that apply to the particular year of the work that you are interested in. A major source of works entering the public domain was failure to renew copyright during the 28th year. If you saw the separate video on copyright duration, you may remember that works had to be renewed during the 28th year of copyright. What we're going to stress in the video that you're watching right now is, for works from 1949 and earlier, that the 28th year is a year that's measured starting from the exact month and date that the copyright went into effect and ending the same month and date a year later. So starting from the 27th anniversary of copyright, going through the 28th anniversary of copyright.
I suppose it's different for works from 1950 and later.
That is correct. For works from 1951 and later, copyright is renewed during the calendar year, January 1st to December 31st, that the 28th anniversary of this copyright start date turns up in. In these cases, the copyright renewal period starts later than under the other circumstances, because after the 27th anniversary occurs, you wait to the next January 1st.
You didn't say anything about the year 1950.
For works with a copyright start date in 1950, you can follow either the rules that applied to 1949 or the rules that applied to 1951. The copyright law gave two options in those cases.
I guess that's why I see on the screen these quotations from the Copyright Office about how 1950 was different. Hey, mister there, I think you're flim-flamming me. I've been reading on the internet how it always is the case that the copyright renewal has to occur between January 1st and December 31st of the year with the 28th anniversary in it.
Those other websites can report what they want. The way that the older copyright laws were written makes it very clear. You can also read what judges wrote in their court decisions when they were faced with deciding whether a copyright or renewal did or did not occur during the appropriate time period. And now for a quick rundown of how different time periods have different rules for renewal.